Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Caroline Logan, Programme Director for BuildForce, reporting to you from a very dreary Dorset today, but very excited today to have our females in the construction sector or the wider built environment. And just to note, you can see none are wearing hard hats, none have muddy boots, and in fact, none are on a building site. So we're here to share with you the breadth of the sector and what these three wonderful leading ladies do. So sit back, prepare to be excited, enthralled, interested, and enjoy. Over to you, Angela.
Thank you, Caroline. So hello, everyone, and welcome. And thank you for dialing into our schedule of virtual career chat. It's a very special one today. So we observe International Women's Day 2024. So this week we are speaking to ex-military women who are shaping the construction industry. So you may have heard the famous Maya Angelou quote, "I am grateful to be a woman. I must have done something great in another life." So I know through my own career being female, what it takes inside all of us to get through some days, how hard we need to fight, how deeply we care, and how much of a difference we can actually make. So we are great in our own way. So to discuss their transition and their way of doing it, we welcome Megan Porter from Kier, Mary Hudson from Mace, and Katie Hislop from Mott MacDonald. So we'll hand over to our incredible speakers. They'll kick us off. So Megan, we will hand over to you and we'll switch our cameras off.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Caroline and Angela. It's a pretty exciting intro, so hopefully I can live up to it. I'm really happy to be here today to speak to you all, and I hope that in the next sort of 5 or 10 minutes I can help shed a light on my transition into the construction industry. So my name is Megan. I left the Royal Engineers in January 2023. I had done 6 years as an officer in the Royal Engineers, primarily in the armoured world. So I'd been to Canada, I'd done operations in Estonia, and a few other exercises. Military roles included being a troop commander, being a training officer, and doing some recruitment for the Royal Engineers as well for about 18 months. So quite a short career, but one that I really, really enjoyed. And when I left, I was just ready for a new opportunity, a new challenge. And I started to engage with all sorts of different support organisations, of which BuildForce was one. So I engaged with Angela and Caroline 2 or 3 months after I'd submitted my notice, and had about 9 months left on my transition journey. So when I left the Royal Engineers, I was interested in construction because I felt, well, I've got a little bit of that from the Royal Engineers, although admittedly it was quite limited. But I knew that construction was a big industry in the UK. I knew that it was growing. I knew that if I wanted to build a career, there'd be lots of different opportunities. So I thought it was worth a look, and I looked elsewhere, as I'm sure a lot of you have or will as you go through your journeys. So I currently work for Kier Construction. So we're a tier 1 contractor. We're an absolutely massive contractor with over £10 billion on our order book. We're proud to say, and we've just re-entered the FTSE 250. So it's a really good time to be working for Kier. My initial involvement with Kier came in the September, so 9 months into my last year of service, and Caroline helped me set up a week's placement with the Kier project at Oxford Station. It was facilitated by another amazing female veteran who was the project manager there. And it was an absolutely brilliant week in terms of helping me understand my experiences, how they might fit in the world of construction, and really have an open ear in terms of that mentor in Nikki, who hosted me, to ask what I felt were silly questions, but in hindsight were really important to me. So I had a fantastic week there. I absolutely loved the business. I loved the vibe. I loved the people I met, the values, everything. But because I was working with BuildForce, I had other options on the table, thankfully, which was really good. And I actually started to veer away from wanting to work on site because I felt like I'd worked away a lot during my military career. Oxford Station was very close to me, but with construction, projects move all the time, and I didn't want that, what I perceived as a disruption. So I actually started looking elsewhere, even though I'd had a really great time with Kier. And through BuildForce, I'd made connections with loads of different businesses in the industry, and one more in the consultant space, because I saw that as a place that would maybe fit my lifestyle goals a little bit more. And I secured a job as an assistant project manager with a consultancy firm in the transportation division. And I started and I really enjoyed it. I had a really lovely team. The clients were fantastic. The project was pretty dynamic. It was up to £100 million in value. So it was really helping me use some of my military skills, but very much challenging me to learn more. However, during the time that I worked for that consultancy, I actually felt that the majority of the work that I did in the role of project manager wasn't really fulfilling me in the same way that I'd hoped my civilian career would. And I started to do a little bit of reflection a couple of months in and said, what do I feel like I'm missing, or what parts of my current job do I absolutely love and want to do more of? And the answer was, I absolutely loved engaging with the clients. I absolutely loved engaging with people across the business. I loved finding solutions to problems. I loved the autonomy of working on that project, and having a sort of set of boundaries to work within, and then really push something forward like I'd done in the military. And I knew that in the role of project manager, that just wasn't going to cut it for me in the long term. So I made what I would describe as quite a challenging decision. 4 or 5 months into my new civilian role, which the company were brilliant. I was being very well paid, very well treated, had a lovely team. And I actually decided to take a bit of a U-turn, really, and think the skills that I wanted to really push me more towards the people space. So I reached out back to Care, and I started exploring roles with them because I knew from experience I shared a lot of their values, and I wanted to find a business where I felt really at home with the people and the culture, because I'd had that throughout my military career. So I ended up actually securing a job in human resources. So my job now is the recruitment diversity manager, which is a bit of a unique job, I would say. So I'm one of one, which is nice. I lead a small team. My job is to make sure that the recruitment into Care is as inclusive as possible. So that includes looking after our veterans programs, trying to encourage our hiring managers across our business, nearly 11,000 strong, to see transferable skills as a real strength to our business and a reason to take someone in rather than a reason to turn someone down. And we've got a great reputation for doing that, and we continue to strive towards it. I also lead our programs for people with convictions, and I'd say we're industry leading on that. I'm actually on one of our sites at the moment, working with the team who are working on a future build for a prison project, and talking about how we can make our business inclusive for people with various convictions to reduce reoffending. And that's a really fantastic program to lead. It's extremely rewarding. So as you can see through my transition, yes, I work in construction. I've now had 2 jobs in construction. I've had one day where I've been in hard hat and boots so far, on site meeting some amazing colleagues. But actually, I found a role in construction that really makes the most of my skills. I really enjoy finding solutions to things. I really enjoy driving problems home. I enjoy working closely with people, both internally in the client space and also on a candidate level. And I enjoy working in the strategic space as well, because the work that we do on our team, even though we very much are delivering, it really builds our strategic plan as well as a business and contributes towards the type of business Care is at its core, which is inclusive, and who values a wide range of skills. So I just want to quickly run through a few of the the things that I think I might have liked to know. So firstly, the day job. I know Maddie's got a great slide on this, but typically day to day I work from home 2 to 3 days a week, and then I travel 1 to 2 days a week. So I'm in Kent at the moment. Next week I've got a day in London, I've got a day in Bristol. I go to the office to collaborate with my team and the wider team, which is great. But it's a fairly steady routine and very open to flexibility, which is, I don't have any children, but I do have a Labrador. I'm sure many of you will empathise and love your pets as much as I do. And the ability to walk the dog at lunchtime, get out to the gym, actually do things that I enjoyed in the military that make me, being outside, getting fresh air, was really important to me. And to have that work-life balance that when I was leaving the military, I really felt I was starting to lack. So I was determined to claw that back, which I have, and I really love it. And it is challenging. There's no doubt about it. When I left the military, I didn't find my perfect job on day 1, week 1. And I think it's really common for people leaving the military to be a little bit hard on ourselves and say, oh, I should have got that right straight away. But ultimately, just a bit of self-compassion went a long way for me, and I've, landed in a job that I genuinely look forward to every day. That I think I do better than almost anybody else. I'm really confident in my skills to do this job. I'm really confident in my team skills to do this job. I deeply care about the work we do. And it gives me a great strategic insight into how, a huge company such as Kier functions across all of our projects, from the tactical to the strategic level. And that's sort of my journey so far. And I'm, really enjoying my time at Kier. Really glad I sort of took the step to really move into a role that was right for me rather than just following the crowd. And yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing some questions, hopefully. But Angela, I think that's probably enough from me.
Megan, that was
back
perfect.
to you, if that's all right.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think you're guaranteeing your place in heaven with that role. So well done, you.
Fingers crossed.
Could we ask Maddie to join us? Maddie, I think you've got a presentation to bring up as well.
Yeah, I have. Brilliant. I'm sorry, mine's about 15 minutes. So if I do go over Angela, can you give me a little prompt? I do tend to waffle on a bit. Good afternoon. My name is Maddie, and I left the military in December 21. I was in the army as a captain in the Royal Engineers. And while I was in the military, I completed my time as a troop commander, where I did the 9 months deployment to Cabret, which hopefully some of you have experienced and enjoyed. I then did my time as an intelligence officer and then finished as 6 months acting as regimental ops officer. I've put on my qualifications when I left the army because I think a lot of people are like, what qualifications do you need in the civilian industry? And I didn't actually leave with very much. So I had the CMI Management and Leadership Level 5, which we get from both Sandhurst and Junior Captains courses. I then did the APM Fundamentals course, which is actually relatively affordable as far as PM courses go. I did that with standing learning credits while I was in the army. And then as I was leaving the army, I thought it'd be a really good decision to spend my my standing learning credits on a yoga instructor's course, obviously priorities. And then I also completed an NCRQ Manager's Safety course, which I don't actually recommend to anyone. I wouldn't say it puts you at an advantage in the civil industry, but it did give me a really good understanding of how to do risk assessments and has helped me for risk workshops. But you could learn that in the role rather than necessarily doing a course for it. So why PM consultancy? So I think for me, I've always been an advocate of find what is a non-negotiable for you. Megan did touch on it, but whether that's going to the city and joining financial services, work hard, play hard, earn lots of money, or if it's living by the beach and earning a load of goats, having allotments and a really lovely work-life balance. Find what is best for you. And for me, it was having that balance between work from home and also working on site, being with people, being in a people-orientated job. And also, I really enjoy the project management element, and I wanted to bring that into the civilian role. So this is me on Demolitions Day on the corner right, which is obviously really fun with a sledgehammer knocking down some elements that they don't need anymore in the building. But I've been at Mace now for 2 years. Mace really appealed to me because when I was leaving the military, there was quite a big push from a lot of project management consultancy roles that if you've been in the army to join the defence and security sector, and I didn't really want that. I wanted to be in the arts and culture, something that did interest me. So I joined Mace as an assistant project manager and I got promoted to project manager consultant last year, which is really great. And the positive say about the role of being a PM consultant that you can bring forward from the military is your soft skills. So communication, stakeholder management, leadership, all of that good stuff that we know and love in the army. The professionalism, so the amount of times that we'll have documents and people are like, they're good to go out and it's just not up to the standard that's, what the client would expect. So having that governance, the timeliness and the deadlines, I think you do get a lot of that from the military as well. And finally, roles outside of your job spec. So in civil industry, I'd say it's very, this is your roles and responsibilities, and you don't have to deviate out of that. But being in the military, you're used to being a junior troop commander and then also being a mess sec or also being a D&I lead or whatever it is that you do additionally. That comes as a second nature to us. So I think that attitude in the civil industry goes a long way because you can get involved and also it definitely supports you for that promotional aspect later on. The negatives I'd say is job progression. From day one, go into your job and find out what you need to do in order to promote. It sounds silly when you've just started work, but civil industries only have set windows of when you can be promoted. You can't just do it throughout any time of the year. So find out when that is, because it might be a year from now or a year and a half. So you can already start setting those goals. The next one is salary negotiation. So when you're looking at finding out what salary you want to be on, think, okay, can I still be on this salary in 2 years' time? Like, how is my life going to differ if I'm moving out of, a quarter, and then, you've suddenly got to pay council tax, etc., or a more expensive area because you're moving to London, what that implication is, and find out kind of what your thresholds are. And finally, it was actually a little bit trickier. People did warn me that you do need to be humble. Going from being Reggie Ops, which is very active and right next to the CEO, to suddenly having to kind of be a bit quieter, listen, absorb a lot more. I did find that difference a little bit trickier to get into. Sorry, I don't know if it's working to go on to the next slide. Oh, there we go. Okay. So working routine. I've done this as a reality check because technically, we're only meant to do 7.5 hours of work a day. But I just want to give a reality check of, there is a bit of pressure on some occasions. So on the left, I've included kind of like what a really, really horrendous week looks like for me. This kind of happens probably once every 6 weeks, maybe 2 months. And then on the right-hand side is a daily jogging for me. So on the left, we've had quite a heavy deadline. I probably could have done this in advance, but I like working to a deadline. It puts the pressure on, and also I feel like I can deliver the work in kind of a more condensed. When you're looking at a huge documentation, so this one that I've got in here, which is an invitation to tender, it was about 120 pages worth of reading of information from various contractors, and you have to evaluate their responses. So if you kind of spread it out over a long period of time, you can't necessarily review the information of the different questions. Whereas if I kind of look at it in a short space of time, I'm able to address them, not comparatively because I'm not allowed to, but you can find notes of what other people are missing. So this is a particularly busy week for me. However, I do want to note that during this time, I'm still able to go for a walk with the dog in the morning for an hour, which I love, and I still take my hour lunch break, whether that be just to have a bit of fresh air or go for a run or go to the gym. I've still managed to fit in kind of 3 gym sessions and 4 dog walks. On the right is my normal jogging routine, and this kind of what looks like every day to me. So I like to start work relatively early at like 8 o'clock in the morning, so I can clear a lot of my administration elements before going into meetings at 9. I tend to work on a 2-3 split. So that's when we're in construction, I'll be on site around 3 days a week or so. When we're out of construction, I'll only be on site or in the office sort of 2 days a week. On site, that's when you really need to be focused on delivering to the client. So there's lots of progress meetings, one-to-one catch-ups, design updates, and also progress meetings. Whereas off-site, that's when you can kind of do more minutes, action trackers, programming updates, and especially all the background information. So for example, we have to do a lot of invoicing and fees, and internal administration governance to keep the projects running. I have a 2-hour commuting time. So literally I leave my house kind of around 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'll be up in the office by 8 o'clock. And kind of normally, so for example, on Wednesday the 24th, I finished around 2 o'clock traveling back home. And then I just worked on the train, and then I had to travel to site, as into the office to do something else later on that day. But yeah, you just get the concept of I can hotspot my phone on the train back and work. So I'm still not necessarily going back home really late. So I wanted to show you some of the projects that I've been working on. This is something that I'm extremely passionate about and why I really love my job. I've had the opportunity to work with the most incredible clients, and potentially why I feel that my job is a little bit pressured sometimes, but I absolutely thrive off it, and it's what gets me up in the morning. So these kind of projects to highlight. So the first is Victoria and Albert Museum that I worked on for about a year and a half, and we were doing a 7,000 square metre internal fit out, and that's for the new V&A Easter Museum in Stratford. That's currently undergoing construction still. I then have taken on the Natural History Museum, so I've been on that again for just over a year, and I've got 2 major projects for that one. That is the Trings Rothschild Library, which is these bottom 2 images that you can see, and the Paleontology Building, which is that corner left, and it's the kind of slightly modern 70s build that's next to the main Waterhouse facade. We're doing refurbishment of the roof and also conservation upgrades for both of them. So the key one to note with these Natural History Museum projects is they're a little bit trickier than the new build of the V&A, because you already have huge amounts of collections and artifacts in the building. So when you're doing a roof refurbishment, it's an opportunity to be very innovative with how you're going to go about problem solving, especially with water ingress, because it can't even be a question that there's going to be any sort of water getting into these artifacts and collections, especially with the library you can see in the bottom right. All of that is original works and they're completely irreplaceable. And we can't move the books out of situ because they'll be damaged. They have to be held with like special gloves and treatments. So to remove all those books from the library would just take us too long. So as a result, they have to stay in situ, and we have to come up with ways to internally protect them, as well as doing the external temporary roofing solutions. So yeah, it's been lots of fun, lots of problem solving, and using the technical expertise in the room to get it resolved. And then my other sort of more recent project I've been working on since kind of around September time is the London Stadium. So that's the top middle picture, and we're doing a roof solar element to meet the London 2030 carbon strategy that's been put in place to reduce carbon emissions. It's the largest cantilevered roof in Europe. I don't know if anyone's a West Ham fan, but yeah, getting to visit that is quite fun. But yeah, because it's so because of the cantileverage, the weight bearing limitations are quite small. So it's been tricky to find ways using the design team to come up with solutions for that. I just want to quickly touch on some transition tips before I finish. I'd firstly recommend going to everything. The fact that you've turned up to this today is like a really, really good start. And just knowing what you like and what you don't like. Don't rule out anything. I think I attended like insurance talks and financial service consultancy before I came across BuildForce. But I kind of got an inkling of what I enjoyed and what I didn't from hearing people talk about their projects or work that they were doing. Networking, so obvious and really key. You might meet me and I'll say, you're actually not best for Mace, but I do know Megan or Katie, and point you in other directions of other organizations. So networking helps not just to get a job with that individual, but they might know other people as well. I would recommend making a separate or second email account, one that isn't attached to your shopping orders or anything else that you're subscribed to, that is just purely for CVs and job offers. So as soon as your phone goes off, you can respond to any recruiters nice and timely. Like I said at the beginning, just set your non-negotiables. Like, what do you want what does life look like for you outside of the military? Is that being able to go for a jog walk in the morning? Is that picking up kids in the afternoon? Or is that, work hard, get up at 5 a.m, but you want to be in the city and you want to be earning lots of money, so then you can go away skiing in Verbier on the holidays? Like, what does that look like for you? Having generic CVs and tailored CVs. So your generic CVs, if you want to do an operations role, but you're not sure what organization, having a generic one that you can put out to anyone initially is great. A tailored CV, if you met me and said, I really want to do project management consultancy, I would expect you to already have a tailored CV if you knew that was the specific job role and sector you wanted to work within. Transition scheme or not, I didn't even think about this, but I would recommend it for consideration. For example, Mace don't have a transition scheme, so you don't come to Mace and do a 3-month course where they teach you what to do and then you can go and do your job. It is jump into the deep end and just learn, and over through osmosis you'll kind of get a feel of what you need to do, plus doing courses and the support of your line management. Whereas a lot of financial services, insurance, they all have transition schemes where you have a bit more of a gentle way into work, I believe. Know the business. I've said this because I do a couple of screening interviews for candidates to join Mace before they do their main interview. And I go on quite a lot of calls where people don't even know where their closest Mace office is, or what sectors we work within, or what job roles we have available. And that is all accessible on the Mace website. So I would really recommend just taking the time before you go to any interview, even if it's just a screening one where people say it's just a chat. It's not just a chat. It never is just a chat. It is an opportunity for you to display what an opportunity it would be to join the company, and also what a benefit you'd be to us. So yeah, just know your company before you go for any interviews. There is a thing, it's too early. I have been on some calls before with people who have said, oh, I haven't even done the clicks yet. I'm probably looking at leaving in April 25. That is a little bit too far out for us. So I think working between that 3 to 6 month window would be really beneficial. And finally, your standing learning credits and enhanced learning credits, they're great. So, obviously use them before you head out of the army. PM qualifications, all of those glorious Prince 2s, Agile, APM, PMQ, all of those are good. But if I had enhanced learning credits, I would have spent mine on an Excel course, because when you are under pressure to do an Excel spreadsheet and not just equals, brackets, sum, and then, select the amount, this is really intense, not even using the mouse, it would be really beneficial. And then that's my LinkedIn QR code. If anyone would like to drop me a note, yeah, please just don't add me blank soon, because I won't know who you are. If you just say I attended the virtual career chat, I'm happy to chat to anyone who needs. But that's me, Angela. Thank you.
Maddie, that was excellent. Thank you very much. We'll just let you take your presentation down, and we'll ask Katie to join us.
So I'm Katie. I spent 24 years in the Royal Engineers, and I'm now Chief of Staff working for Mott MacDonald. You might ask what that is. I'm not sure I necessarily know entirely myself. It's a role that was new as I came into it, and I'm still sort of finding my way after just 18 months with Mott's. But what I will say up front is that I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I really like Mott's as a business, and I'll go into my sort of journey to Mott's a little later on in this presentation. But I just wanted to sort of introduce myself first, really. I would see myself primarily as a mum to 2 teenagers, as a wife to an army veteran, as an ultra runner, a bit of a coffee snob, someone who loves travel, a sports person, and a sports scientist by background. So maybe not the type of person you might think would have landed in the construction sector. And so that's what I wanted to put out there up front. My military background, I feel incredibly lucky. I had an amazing 24 years in the Royal Engineers. I joined straight from university because I wanted the challenge, the outdoor life. I wanted to lead people, and I got all of that really with the army. Highlights for me included commanding at troop command, subunit, and then unit level on operations across the world, from Northern Ireland, which probably dates me a little bit, Kosovo, which does the same, Iraq, Afghanistan, and then most recently in South Sudan, where I was fortunate enough to be one of the first UK commanding officers to lead an engineering task force over there as part of the United Nations mission. And as part of our mission, we were tasked with building a hospital facility for the United Nations in one of the most austere locations I've ever been to, with virtually no good supply routes, where logistics was incredibly stretched, incredibly difficult, and where looking after people was also equally as difficult. I think I would put that down as a highlight to my career, perhaps a time when I realised sort of how important it was to, and how important it was to me, that whatever I did going forward, beyond that had to be about looking after people, leading people, and about doing something that had a real purpose. And that's, I think, where my journey really of sort of looking outside the army first came about. I did stay in for a couple of years after command. I ended up as the military assistant to the commander of the Standing Joint Command, who, for those of you that were serving through the COVID period, then we were responsible for providing Defence's contribution to the government's COVID response. And as part of that, I then ended up being seconded to the government's vaccine task force as the chief of staff for a period of 6 months, which again, when I went into that, I wasn't necessarily thinking I would leave the army. I was still thoroughly enjoying it, but that actually sort of cemented in my mind that there was a lot more out there and that I should look outside the army to see what opportunities there were, because I felt like I worked with some brilliant people across the civil service, across industry, developing vaccines, clearly a real purpose to that, and managed to network with some incredible people. So at the point at which shortly after that I did decide to leave, those things were sort of front and center of my mind. But I parked them aside when I first pressed those 7 buttons on the on JPA, so I was going to leave, because I then sort of felt a certain sense of freedom, a certain sense of time. I suddenly had all of this time in front of me and a real opportunity just to think through, what is it I want to do next? Because there's no longer a performer that says the following jobs are available, please select the top 3 that you'd like and we will put you in one of those or something else. There was suddenly a whole world open to me. And so I took some advice from friends, from colleagues, from anybody who would talk to me. And I determined that I really needed to decide on what it was I wanted to do going forward. I knew it had to have a purpose. I knew it had to involve leading people. And ultimately, I also knew it needed to be something I would be really proud to say I was doing. If somebody asked, what do you do? I've always been really proud to say, oh, I'm in the army or I'm in the Royal Engineers. And so to me, I needed to be able to have that when I moved on to a civilian job. I also took a slightly selfish view of my resettlement time. And I think because of the stage I was at the military, and because I didn't want to go into a technical role or a specific construction role or something that needed qualifications, I wanted to use the skills I had. Then I decided I would use my resettlement training grants and time, along with my standard learning credits, to do some ultra running courses, some sky running courses, and to qualify as a barista. That was all for me. That's because I enjoyed doing those things. They gave me a sense of well-being and achievement, and I realised I would probably never get this time again. So that's how I decided to spend my resettlement, as well as taking up every opportunity. And I think it was Maddie who just said, don't rule out any opportunity, go to every event. Most of them have free notebooks, free pens, free mugs, free food. And you will definitely, even if it's a sector you end up having no interest in whatsoever, you'll definitely meet some really great people who you can network and connect with. So with all of that in mind, my sort of networking connections started with not ruling anything out. Except in my mind, to be entirely honest, I had already ruled out the construction sector. I thought, I really don't want to work in construction, though. That's what a lot of Royal Engineers do. It's the expected route, so I definitely don't want to do that. But I will go to the BuildForce sort of Insight Career Fair Day because I might meet some good people and get an idea of what it is I do want to do. I actually then ended up realising quite how many roles there were in the construction sector that were not project or programme management, that were not delivering construction on site. I had loved doing that in the military. I had genuinely, I'd done it in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Kosovo, in Northern Ireland to an extent, in South Sudan. I have absolutely loved it, but I wanted something different. And speaking to people and networking then led me to Mott MacDonald. And during this time as well, I had thought through, well, what are my skills? this is my journey, and this is what I need to decide what I want to do. And I determined that my skills lay in being a good chief of staff. So being that person who works to the commander's intent. Well, that's something that we do throughout our military careers, and galvanizes the team behind them, solves problems, and prepares the ground for really good client or stakeholder engagement. All the things that I felt I was really good at and really thrived on doing. So I packaged my CV up as a chief of staff. Now, there's not many jobs out there that are asking for a chief of staff. And so the way in which I ended up with my own sort of purpose, my own sort of what I wanted to do, aligning with what was available out there, is through networking and through another military colleague who also works in MOTS, put me in touch with someone working in MOTS, supporting the new hospital programme. This is a large government programme seeking to build 40 new hospitals across England by 2030. Much needed, clear purpose, and I'd already been involved in hospital building, vaccine task force. It really interested me. And what I saw from my research of asking them how the project was running, the services were running, I could see that there was a real need for a chief of staff. And I was able to convince the people interviewing me there was a need for that as well. And so between us, we were able to write a job description and negotiate the role. And then I started directly into that role. That's quite an unusual way to go into, I think, one of these large companies. I think often you would apply for a job as a particular role, but then once you're in the company, get tasked onto different projects, whereas I've come in specifically for the one project, and so that is all I've worked on. I have, however, and I think this is the really the sort of beauty of working in a large company, is that there are opportunities to add value elsewhere. So I am one of the members of the Armed Forces Pathway Working Group now, which supports military and the wider military family as well. So we're very much not just focusing on veterans or reservists, but family members as well, of helping people through that pathway into Mott MacDonald. I will close very shortly, but I just wanted to share a couple of top tips as well. And one of them, which I have emphasised, I think, is about make the journey yours. Don't be afraid to be yourself and bring yourself into your work. I feel that every day I bring myself into work. I use military terminology sometimes. I make military analogies. I bring my experience with me, and I can see that that adds real value and brings in a different perspective. And perspective is something that's really important that I think all military people can offer in the workplace. My final two observations that I wanted to share. So I've worked in MOTS for 18 months. From April, I'll be working 4 days a week out of 5 through a choice that I want more time to go off to ultra running events and to balance family life. And that has been absolutely agreed. I'll carry on in the same role and won't really see any difference to my responsibilities. I will just cover less time. And the final one is have a think about, some companies will have mentoring programs. So I have a mentor within MOTS, so somebody outside of my line management, but who helps me network across the company and learn about the company and is a good sounding board. And I also use a commercial coach, so somebody who a sort of executive coach outside of that as well, which really helps and again offers a broader perspective. That's me.
Katie, that was incredible. Thank you very much. If I could ask our speakers to switch their cameras back on. If you do have a question, and you're more than welcome coming online and asking away. So first of all, wow, so thank you very much to our speakers. So very, very impressed. So Megan, you kicked us off today. Thank you very much for that. So a couple of quick questions for you, if I may. Have you always been so people focused? Is that your personality shining through in your current role?
Yeah, if you ask my long-suffering friends and family, they would describe me as her tongue is on a hinge, and they'd probably use more colourful language than that. So yeah, it's something that I've always found really energizing. I know some people, depending on your disposition, sometimes people can find working with people exceptionally draining. But I like the balance. I like a little bit of time doing some independent work using my brain, but I also find being able to communicate things to people, sometimes quite complex things, sometimes quite simple things, is just I really enjoy doing that. Military people are actually specifically the ability to communicate on multiple levels. So you're constantly used to communicating up, down, side to side, and communicating like complexity and simplicity. I was in a meeting today when I got out an A4 piece of paper and got my Johnny Age 5 drawing book out to explain something. And within 5 minutes, everybody understood what I meant. So yeah, definitely something that I find just sits naturally with the way I operate. And I found when I was lacking the chance to do that, I actually found like work a bit draining, which is not something I've ever wanted. And it sort of brings that point back, doesn't it? That like it has to be right for you. You're not a robot, you're not a clone. So if you're finding a job, that job could be the best job in the world for someone else. But if it is not the right job for you, do not just tunnel through and go, well, I mean, Maddie and I are great friends. And Maddie absolutely nailing project management, loves it. She's class at it. She's, working on some unbelievable projects. So it would have been easy for me to look at Maddie 1 year ahead of me on the transition and go, well, if Maddie's doing it and she's liking it, maybe I'm the problem. But it wasn't. It was just the match wasn't right. So yeah, definitely put your own values, your personality, your strengths at the core of what you want, because then you'll actually enjoy your work, which it's often not spoke about. You need to enjoy your job. But I mean, I work 40 hours a week. If I was spending 40 hours a week miserable, I'd be pretty unbearable for the people in my life.
It's a really good point. I think we discussed this previously on this series in terms of, and more often than not, some females come to us and it's just, I'm leaving. I just don't know what I want to do. It's almost as if inspire me. And I think your point of just leading with what you enjoy rather than what you'd experienced in is a good place to start. So I think that's brilliant advice. So thank you. You also mentioned your perception actually was exceptional. You mentioned your contribution to business plan, to having strategic insights. So you see the bigger picture and the importance of your role. So I expect that helps feel a connection with an employer when you're part of such a large organisation. Did you consciously reach out to an industry giant? Was it the familiarity, the size and scale of the armed forces when you went to Kier, or?
No, it was actually the opposite. It was
right.
Especially when I reached back to Kier, I didn't feel like I was reading out to Kier, the corporate organisation that was almost faceless. I felt like I was reaching out to Kim, which was where the confidence came to almost go back, especially, done a new job. It's not gone the way you wanted it to. You've actually turned down a job from this company. So I describe that as going back cap in hand and saying, look, I've made an error in judgment here, but I didn't feel like I was going back to an anonymous conglomerate. I felt like I was going back to people that I knew, and that's the value of networking, because it's a lot less scary to do that. It's a lot less scary to talk to Maddie than this amazing high-flying Mace project manager who is bossing life. It's a lot easier to go to Katie and talk to Katie rather than this chief of staff that is just somehow making cogs that don't go together work. So that's the power of networking. So when I went back to Kier, I didn't go back to Kier. I went back to a person, and that's why I felt confident to do it.
And it's that human factor piece, isn't it? And just on Maddie, thank you for your presentation there. You mentioned one of the striking things you mentioned was being humble, to listen and absorb. Is that just during your initial resettlement into industry, or have you permanently changed your character to suit this civilian space?
I think initially, I think going from like a regimental ops officer role where you were literally just sat next to the CEO all the time, and they're like, so what? How can we add value? How can we add value? And you're doing that constant analysis and sort of like estimate process, and every decision that's coming in, you feel like you've got a lot of a say and a lot of kind of autonomy over the regiment, and that's a really nice feeling to have that. So going from that to suddenly you're now stuck with kind of graduates that are 19 or 21 and who don't really know what's going on, and you feel like you've got so much incentive and you want to be proactive and do it. you don't have the construction knowledge yet to get on and do it. So yeah, initially I did find that just really, really hard, that I had to just sit back, calm down, take the easy days and just understand and learn, because as soon as I understood a lot more than what I'm doing, it's then kind of incorporated those skills. And now I would say, no, I'm definitely not humble now. I am very happy to start telling people what needs to be done and being proactive and very kind of demanding on some of my projects. But yeah, initially it is important.
And just on that, you mentioned the V&A and the Natural History Museum. So my experience of these clients, so they're very precious of their space. It's about a lack of disruption to visitors. Has that been your greatest achievement, the strength of relationships?
Yeah, it really has been. They are a really I mean, they're a very high profile client, and you have to kind of support them a lot in that process, and they're bringing you on board. You know, they could hire a project manager if they wanted to, like they have the money to do that, but they're bringing you on as a company to support them and use that expertise and knowledge to kind of problem solve with them, and also support them in the process. They don't want to be forgotten about. They want to be part of it. Like, this is something that they're developing and they're funding with trustees' money. So there's huge amounts of stakeholder engagement involved. Very long processes to get it agreed. It's not just a one decision, like with private consultancy and construction. There's normally kind of a lot more fewer people to tick the box with. It's been so much fun. I absolutely love working with the clients I work with. I feel very lucky.
And you're obviously doing well, because you mentioned you went from APM to PM within about a year. Do you know where you're going to be in the next 5 years? Have you got a wider plan?
I mean, I'd like to still kind of be working within the arts and culture department. It's fun, but the projects are few and far between. So I definitely need to practice my bid writing, I think, to try and support on getting some more work.
Okay, and thank you very much for that. And Katie, a few questions for you. So I think probably the irony was you discussed your exceptional military career, yet when you defined yourself, you started by saying you were a mum and a wife to a veteran and a coffee snob and a few other things in there. And that's going back to Maddie's point of being incredibly humble. And I thought that was an incredible example. Were you aware that you did that, or are you just a mum first and foremost?
I think I genuinely am. I think what I wanted to do was just explain how I feel now. I honestly feel like I bring myself to work. I make no apology for who I am. And I think back to sort of 24 years in the army, and I like to think I did bring myself to work. I know there's an emphasis here on women, so I will say this, but in my early careers in the army, so in the sort of early 2000s, I think I probably did try to fit in by being more masculine, by displaying more of the behaviours of my male counterparts. In my troop, as a troop commander, I was the only woman. When I deployed my subunit on operations to Afghanistan, I was the only woman in that subunit. It was a hugely male-dominated environment, and I like to think that I was myself, but I feel more myself now. And I think that period of resettlement from the military to civilian life absolutely cemented in my mind what was the most important thing to me. And I feel now one of the areas I hope that others, if you ask them, would say the same, that I work with. But that's why I mentioned that I feel like I bring perspective to work. I find myself often saying to a colleague, why are you in the office at 8 o'clock last night when you have a family? And even if you don't have a family, I'm sure you could find other better things to be doing. But I have to finish this piece of work. But what will happen if you do not? And there's very, very rarely something catastrophic that will happen if you miss a deadline or you don't do something. And so and one of the reasons I like working in MOTS is I find that there's a lot of like-minded people who are real people who I enjoy their company of. There's a really good balance of women, particularly across the board. I'm often in meetings where there's more women than men. That was so unusual. When I first joined MOTS, it was just a completely sort of refreshing new environment from the military. I have answered your question in lots of words, so I apologise for being very long-winded. I hope that was useful.
Words perfect. And are you aware, being a senior female, just how much of a safe space you provide? Because I don't think there's many people in their career when they're kind of working through the ranks and that they're trying to do so well in their career to be able to say to you, is it okay if I leave this and go home? It's normally the opposite I find in my career.
Yeah, I think there is an element of truth in that. I'll be really open with sharing this. I really warmed to Mott because when some of the interviews or chats, I know they're not chats, Maddie, they're all interviews, but one of the chats had to be postponed because one of the people I was talking to had to go home for an ill child. And to be honest, that for me told me more about the company than if somebody had been on the call saying, had been there and left their sick child at home or whatever. The fact that they cancelled the call because they prioritised that, I thought, well, actually, that has created a safe space for me, because I might have children who are sick or parents who need me or whatever it is at any time. So I do feel like that. I hope I always create that sort of feel for others.
I think that's a great point, Katie, just to jump in, and how when people are engaging with employers, it's not just what they say, it's how things are being done. So when I interviewed for Care, I was a 2-stage interview because of the grade of the role. And one part of this is Easter last year, and I got through to the 2nd stage interview, obviously. And the hiring manager rang me and said, look, the 2nd stage interview is a presentation. You're going to need to put a wee bit of work in. Look, it's Easter holidays. Let's just push it back a couple of weeks and just take the pressure off in case you. And just said, look, you might not have any plans, but it's just nice to have the breathing space. And I think sometimes in the military, we're so used to having that pressure coming at us that suddenly when we leave and it goes away, there's a temptation to put it on yourself whenever nobody else is doing that. So it's important to pay attention to what people are doing as well as what they're saying or how people make you feel, because that is so important. And like to trust your gut in that. If you get good feelings or bad feelings sometimes, then it's important to listen.
No, it's a brilliant point, Megan. Sorry, Katie. Yeah.
Sorry, Angela, can I just cut in as well? And Katie mentioned something which I think has also been, I found really inspiring working within the civil industry, is that when I was in the military, I wasn't really surrounded by very many women, especially being in the armoured engineering realm. And for me, I like to see someone and almost slightly see myself in them and be like, that's where I want to be in 5-10 years time. And I don't think I ever really got the opportunity to do that within the military because I couldn't really see anyone kind of senior to me. Whereas in this industry, especially with that MACE, like we have so many women who are very senior, and my line manager is an associate director, so she's kind of two job roles ahead of me, and she's absolutely epic, and she's so cool and just really, really inspiring. And every time I have a problem, like she's so approachable. So literally, I'm like, if I can be her in X amount of years' time, I feel like I've achieved something. So yeah, it's a really nice, I don't know, I think having that sort of reflection is, I personally find very helpful and very inspiring to work within a company.
No, it's a good point, Maddie. And I've got a lived example of that. We were chatting to some females earlier in the week, and we've recorded 90 of these virtual career chats. And in the one earlier in the week with just women, I mentioned my 5-year-old son for the first time. And I've never brought him into conversation at all during any of these chats. And it was when I was watching it back, it was like a light bulb had gone off to say, yeah, we're all human at the end of the day. Why haven't I brought him into conversation? He is a big part of my well-being and my life and the structure of my day. So yeah, really, really good points made there. A question to all of you. We'll start with you, Katie. You said that you ruled out construction initially, and that was the perception piece. And I think for decades, industry has had this struggle addressing its perception. Do you think you're programmed completely differently to most females having gone into the armed forces and then the construction industry, or do you just strive for a challenge and it happens to be those two sectors?
I think I happen to have landed in the construction sector because that's where I found a role I felt most suited to. But equally, I feel like I don't feel like I have. I don't feel like I work in the construction sector. I feel like I work for Mott MacDonald, and I feel like I work for the people around me, for adding value to that team, for bringing them together. They happen to be working on a project which involves a lot of construction.
And Maddie, to you, when you're going back to old colleagues or ex-colleagues, or even though still serving, and you're saying to them what your role is that come to a surprise for them, or did they expect that of you, do you think?
I'm not sure. I think probably not a surprise. I think I'm a very kind of tangible visualization kind of person.
Yeah.
If someone says I've got this problem and they talk to me in code, I don't understand. Whereas if someone says, you know, this needs fixing, I'm like, okay, yeah, I can see that. So when we're talking about mechanical and electrical issues or plant work or for the roof refurbishments, I'm like, I have no idea what anyone's talking about. And then they'll take me out to the roof and they'll be like, that thing there needs to go there and it can't because it needs to be jacked up, and then we need to do the screed. And I'm like, oh right, yeah, got it, happy, problem solved, let's do this. So I think, yeah, actually, I would say most of my friends probably aren't surprised that I went sort of the construction realm.
And Megan, do you explain to people what you do? Obviously, Katie sounds as if it's the employer first, just that badge of honour, that pride working for McDonald's. Are you sector first, employer first, or is it role first for you, do you think?
I think I go role first because I think my role is so specific. And I think a lot of people view the construction industry as quite alien. It's something that happens behind the hoarding, and then all of a sudden, like, bam, there's this amazing thing happens. But I always try and go role first because it does show that construction, yeah, it's about plant, yeah, it's about, you know, gosh, I mean, I'm in construction and I'm trying to tell you what it's about, all right? It's making something that's not there, ultimately, to use simple language. But construction is about people. If you don't have the right people around you, if you don't have the right people in your business, you can't deliver for your clients. And I think people understand people. And I've no time for people that Maddie was actually at my house the other week and explained something to me, and I went, Maddie, you just sounded like a consultant there. Can you use can you use mates rates and mates language here to explain it to me? So, you know, I think people understand people, and when you explain things in sort of people terms, it's not very unfamiliar to many people. So I always go role first because that's what I'm most proud of. That's where I have the affinity, and the fact that a company the size of Kier resources a role like mine, I then think sends and speaks volumes about who we are, because we're doing it. We're not just talking about it. We actually physically resource it. So then I go to the business and then the industry. So sort of the opposite.
Caroline, just on Megan's point there in terms of the role, the variety of role, the vastness of role, obviously you touch all of them. What are you seeing out there at the moment? Where are our employers recruiting?
Yeah, I mean, it is literally across everything. I met some women yesterday at an energy event, and we were just discussing, look, whatever it is you want to do, the sector needs you. You know, we've just seen today, we've got a PM consultant, we've got a chief of staff, and then we've got a diversity, inclusivity hiring manager. You know, then there's comms role, and then there's stakeholder engagement, and then there is site manager roles. If there are, you know, boots on the ground roles, if that's what you want. But basically, whatever skill set you've got, the sector needs you. It's absolutely desperate for you. But on top of that, what we've heard today, it's about that ethos, it's about that cultural fit, it's finding that new home for you. And we are a very people-led program, so we're keen to find that next fit for you.
Okay, thank you, Caroline. So just in point of your change coming in April, Katie, you mentioned you're going down to a 4-day week. The well-being piece, obviously, it's very topical at the moment. Employers are incredibly supportive in that space in terms of being able to de-stress or switch that laptop off or not think about something in 4 in the morning. Any advice for any of our females in industry that are struggling at the moment?
Yeah, I think my advice probably goes against everything that we as a cohort will have learned from the military, and it is to be a bit selfish, but don't see selfish as being a negative word, because if you can't look after yourself, then other people might miss it or they might not. But I think the most powerful thing I feel I can do is set an example. So say to people, oh, no, it's 5:30, I've finished for the day, I'll pick that up tomorrow. I obviously wouldn't do that if it was a well-being issue or something, but I think just being quite strict with your own time and setting a schedule you expect other people to adhere to, you know, turning down meetings at lunchtime, not setting meetings at lunchtime. So I think there's just really simple things that we can all do. Just linking to your point about the sort of 4-day week, I'm actually going to also be using some of my enhanced learning credits. I'm not sure of the rules and regulations at the moment, but mine happen to still be valid for 5 years after, I think. And so I've just enrolled on a couple of courses linked to kind of running and various sort of sports out of a genuine personal interest in it. So that's how I've sort of chosen to fill that time and achieve a bit of balance as well.
Okay, and I think Megan and Maddie, you mentioned you've got pet, you've got gym, that's your kind of well-being space, that's your safe space to go to unwind. Yeah. To you, Megan?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the dog needs a lunchtime walk, which is a great reminder that life is typically better for me in the afternoon if I've had some good quality fresh air. But I suppose as well, the other thing that I've done this year is I've started an apprenticeship. So I'm an apprentice also through Kier. So I'm not having to use any of my own or the Army's money to fund that. So I'm doing a data literacy apprenticeship. So all about automation, Power BI, all the things when I left the military it probably would have put me to sleep. But I could now see the value. It's actually saving me a lot of time. So I'd just say, there's, as you get more comfortable in a role, because in the military we're so used to changing roles all the time, and you're barely in a seat and you're looking to the next one, or you're covering a colleague because they're on an 8-week course or anything like that. Sometimes when you actually settle into a role, that can be a challenge to just take a beat and settle and go, okay, this is it. If I want to move, I can move, but no one's going to move me. So look at other ways as well where you can find those opportunities for challenge while you settle in. So for me, an apprenticeship was a great way to do it because I've got an English degree. So learning how to use technical tools is a challenge for me, but I genuinely find the learning of it the most rewarding. So be a bit compassionate, let yourself settle in. And there's other ways in different roles where you can find that challenge or something maybe a bit different to your day job that is still developing you, but isn't, it's not project work, it's not stakeholder management, it's something a wee bit separate. And having that variety really does, well, for me, it's vital. So yeah, the dog, but also like having a couple of other things on the go helps me stay happy.
Good. And Maddie, how are you staying at the moment? What's helping you through life?
I'm a big advocate of going for walks. I think I kind of take my dog out literally 6:30 in the morning religiously. I just love it for an hour. And then, like I said, I think sometimes when you're working, especially when you're getting the early trains and stuff, you kind of leave and it's dark and then you come home and it's dark. And I don't think I get vitamin D some days. So I'm pretty religious when it comes to having an hour lunch break just to have that separation, where that's me quickly jogging down to the gym and doing a 45-minute session and coming back up and then just eating at my desk or just going for another walk. I love it. But my other half and I have recently given up TV for Lent as our thing. So starting to pick up lots of additional hobbies, which I'm starting to enjoy, which is good.
Good for you. Good for you. So listen, thank you to Megan, Maddie and Katie for their incredible contribution today. With support from excellent employers like Kier, Mace and Mott MacDonald, they are best in class on diversity, equality and inclusion, and credit to the strong teams behind them that are leading on this. And for our military women watching this, as Rumi Kapoor once said, the kindest words my father said to me is, women like you drown oceans. So we've very much seen that today from our incredible females. So ladies, know your worth. So this year's theme of International Women's Day is to inspire inclusion, a world free of bias and discrimination. And our sector of construction is leading the way in this, and there are examples within many of our employers where this is the case. BuildForce are here to support you and guide you as you're going through your transition. So please get in touch if you have any questions and we'll help you take that further. And I will pass back to Caroline for some final insights.
Thank you, Angela. I'd just like to say, wow, thank you, ladies. I'm feeling incredibly inspired, humbled. It's been really, really great listening to you. There were real nuggets there that I want to pull out and just pop out on social media all the time, just to put out there to show what you're all doing in the sector, because it's incredible. So thank you. So just a couple of closing notes to the women listening now and later on social media. We have 2 fantastic face-to-face face-to-face events coming up. And like Maddie said, it's really key to engage with anyone and everything. So even if it's a sector you're not sure about or people that you're not sure about, have those conversations, because you need to work out what you don't want to do to find out what you do want to do. These are 2 events you do want to do. So on the 24th of April, we have our project day, which is being hosted by Balfour Beatty Vinci Sistra, which is HS2 joint venture delivering Old Oak Common Station. So it's an opportunity for you to go around the magnitude of that station. It's an hour's site tour, and then we come back to the office to meet the other employers and talk about different disciplines. So an excellent event. And then following that, at the London Stadium on the 25th of April, we have our National Armed Forces Insight Day, which is open to spouses and all armed forces. Again, it's a great opportunity to meet with 40 employers from the sector. MOTS will be there, Mace will be there, Kia will be there, as will other key industry and partners. So really good opportunity for you to engage, find out more about the sector, the roles on offer, and bag yourself a job if that's what you're looking for. So that's it from us. That's a wrap. Thank you to all those wonderful ladies online and out there. We love you all. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, speakers. That was incredible.